Often one of the misunderstood variables in training is this idea of muscle endurance. And specifically when I talk about training, we're speaking about the weight training in the weight room. How do we train for muscle endurance? Dr. Mill will hopefully have a helpful video as you try to navigate what might be an appropriate way to build endurance for if you're an athlete that is an endurance athlete. Should you train with weights that, weight training program that looks like an endurance weight training program, meaning sets that are really high in repetitions, low set counts, so like 2 sets of 30 and so on and so forth. And what are some of the issues that arise with weight training for endurance athletes? So just a very quick background about myself. Yes, I coach weightlifting. Yes, I'm more interested in what goes on in the weight room and sports that tend to fall into those categories in terms of who I train. But I've also had the opportunity over the years to train many endurance athletes. The last group was a group of rowers that went to the 2016 Rio Games. There's 5 of them that I worked with closely. So, this is not a group of athletes that I have no experience or I'm just, shooting off some theories about. These are things I've seen in practice. And now I'm providing hopefully a little bit of insight for those of you who might be listening. And not along with working with the rowers, having done a lot of gait analysis over the years, seeing what is really the problem, at least what the weight room can address for many of these endurance athletes. So here's the deal. Most endurance athletes approach training in the weight room like they approach their distance activities or their endurance activities. They engage in high volume sets and not necessarily number of sets, but the amount of reps per set are high. So you might do 2 to 3 sets of 20 to 30 repetitions of doing, I remember doing the cross country kids would come in and swing dumbbells around like they were running with them, right? Or, some lower body activities or body weight activities. Here's the problem with that. And there's an upside to that because it naturally falls into a progressive program wherein you have to start at a lower intensity exercise regime. But what is the sport of endurance sport? Endurance. Like when you train to get better in endurance sport, what are you training doing? Endurance. So the said principle of specific adaptations to impose demands does apply, of course, but it only speaks to the kind of training you do. It doesn't say that your training has to always match what the sport is. So yes, if you train as an endurance athlete, you probably should do some endurance training. But if you're running 100 miles a week already, and I'm not, some of these athletes that are up to that amount of mileage, I'm just using an example. If you're up to an amount of mileage for you that is challenging, then adding more endurance doesn't make a lot of sense. You're already doing endurance. What would be a better approach is looking at what you're missing. So the endurance athlete is missing strength training. And the endurance athlete doesn't need more volume. In fact, more volume could be harmful in the sense that there's more stress on the body when they're already doing a lot of volume as it is, running lots of miles, rowing lots of kilometers, and so on. Okay? And so looking at then strength as being the deficit, as you approach the weight room then, knowing that the volume should be lower because you don't want to keep piling on the stress in the body, and what's really missing is strength, then it should make sense that you lift heavy weights in the weight room as an endurance athlete. And that may seem completely counterintuitive, but that's the better approach. The other part is, if you haven't seen the recent video I put about non-functional and functional hypertrophy, this idea of doing high repetition sets is going to promote a type of hypertrophy or muscle size gains that could make the muscle quite larger, but without having the contractile protein benefits. In other words, you're building a muscle that has a lot of supportive tissue without having the contractile proteins. I'm not saying you're not going to get any contractile proteins, but you're hypertrophying muscle with with less of an effect on your performance. And for most endurance athletes, it's one of the fears I hear is, I don't want to get bigger. Well, you're training a way you're going to get bigger. You're doing high repetition sets, sometimes to failure. Just because they're high reps doesn't mean you can't get skeletal muscle hypertrophy. So let the endurance training do the endurance, and then use the weight room with low volume, high intensity, high load type of training. Now, that does not mean you have to crawl under a barbell or pull a heavy deadlift off the floor. Those are technical movements, and if you're not very good at them and your mobility is such that is not very good, then don't do them. You have to select exercises that make sense. And for like a distance runner, it can be as simple as a split squat. And I've put a video out of the 3 best exercises for an endurance, a distance runner. This is from my experiences working with distance runners and also doing these running gait analysis. 3 simple exercises. One of them is a dumbbell split squat for your lower body. It's a safe exercise to learn as long as you don't have any knee pathologies that would limit your range of motion in the split squat, which shouldn't be a problem anyway if you're running. If you have any pathology, you're not running anyway, not much. And so it should be fine to do these split squats starting out with body weight and working to, this is the important part, working to a rep range that's roughly 4 to, I say roughly, this can change depending on the time of the cycle, but 4 to 6 reps, 2 to 3, maybe 4 sets with roughly 2 or so to failure, 2 reps to failure, so you can do another 2 reps. That's heavier loads. Now, you don't just start with that. You would build up, that's what I said roughly, you build up to it. So you might start with sets of 10, but you'd only do that for a couple weeks because you're already an endurance athlete, right? So you don't need a lot of muscle endurance. You certainly don't build a lot of hypertrophy. It's just some tissue prep, so you don't just drop heavy loads on your body when it's not ready. So doing a couple weeks, at least a couple weeks of sets of 10, a couple weeks of sets of 8, then you can move into these heavier loads, especially if you time it properly. And this is a different talk, but periodize it in such a way that when you get to your competition or you're getting close to the ramp up of your competition or the highest volume even of your training cycle, that you're doing the lowest volume in the weight room and supplementing with heavier loads. So you're not in the weight room very long. Your workout might take 20 to 30 minutes after a warm-up, and you get that strength work in, and then you're gone. You can recover instead of being in the weight room doing these high rep sets and being in there for a long period of time when you could be recovering. So some of the conventional wisdom is, remember that is the field is switching, has been switching to this idea of lifting heavier weights. Some major universities are approaching this, and the research literature, by the way, also supports the use of heavier weights to improve performance. But potentially running economy. There's those some studies that are counter to this idea, but certainly put more force in the ground is going to make a difference. And certainly absorbing more force and being able to absorb more force is going to be helpful in fending off injuries. Not piling on volume of training in the weight room when you're already doing that anyway is going to make a lot of sense in terms of fending off injuries. So the upside of lifting heavier weights properly ramped to is going to be much more of a benefit to you than doing these high rep body weight circuits when you're already doing that. Work on what you're not working on. It doesn't mean you have to do a 15 exercise circuit, 3 sets. It just means what you are doing, you should be working towards heavier loads. And in what you are doing, obviously select an exercise mode, an exercise selection. That makes sense. Even if that's machines, perhaps. If you're not comfortable with doing free weights, then do some machines, but keep the loads closer to higher, like in the rep range, keep it closer to a 6 than you would a 20. Okay, and that's going to provide more benefit in terms of performance in the long term than is doing these high repetition sets. I'm not saying doing a set of 6 on a leg extension is probably going to be very painful. So you're going to have to find maybe a leg press to do it on, but find something you're comfortable with that you can do the proper exercise movement patterns through. Expect some soreness initially. That's why you don't want to do your sets of 10 and 12 or 8s initially. You want to do that when you're just starting to build your training volume. Okay, and know that soreness will go away, it'll dissipate, and you're off and running. Now, when I worked with high performance rowers, they lifted 2 to 3 times a week. Most of the time, there was 2, just because they were rowing so much that I didn't want to pile on the volume and pick up an injury. That would be the worst thing I could do for them. And so I was very careful about the exercise I select, and I got the exercises that are the most bang for their buck. They trained for an hour to an hour and a half twice a week and steadily got stronger over time. Could they've got a lot even stronger if they had more time? Sure, but that's not what their focus is. Focus on rowing. And so this was a supplement to their training, and it was effective in bolstering their training without breaking them. And it was heavy weights that did the trick, right? It was the heavy weights and allowed them to, again, get out of the weight room and recover. All right, I won't keep spinning in circles here. I hope you found this video helpful. Like it if you like it. If you don't like it, I guess don't like it. Leave comments in the space below. If I see any, I'll try to get to them. And, of course, subscribe to my channel. Putting out content all the time in sports science, nutrition science, and exercise science. I hope you're finding the content valuable as you're perusing the videos. I will see you in the next one.